Hey friends, it is Jenna, what is up, and welcome back to the Board Game Garden, and welcome back to another monthly wrap-up. So today we are going to be doing the monthly wrap-up for August. It is actually pretty early in September, so I'm really happy that I'm getting to this early because last month, so the one for July, I filmed like mid-August, so it feels a little bit weird that both of these are very close together, but I really wanted to get this one filmed because I played a lot of great games in August. I had Gen Con in August. I had the cardboard alchemy / Lucky Duck Games retreat thing that I went to at the end of August as well. And I did have a few board game days in August too. So really excited to talk about all the games that I am going to be talking about in this video. So if you guys want to hear about all the games that I played in the month of August, then just keep on watching. Give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoy. Also hit that subscribe button down below if you've yet to do so. We'd love to have you here in the garden. And also comment down below any games that you played in August that you really enjoyed. Some standout games that maybe you played in August that you want to let me know about. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into this monthly wrap up for the month of August, shall we? All right, so getting started, just like every other monthly wrap up, if you guys have never seen these before, basically I go through my board game stats for the month. If you guys are interested, this is the app that I keep track of my stats on. It is just board game stats. And I put in all of my plays. I don't put in any scores or who I played with or anything like that. I literally just put in the game that I played on the date and where I played it. Actually, no, I correct myself. I do put in the people that I play with as well, but I don't put in scores or anything like that. So yeah, that is the app. But as for the month of August, August was a little bit better than July. I'm still not up there with some of the best months this year so far, but I have a feeling probably November and December will be some pretty good gaming months. I don't know about October. October is going to be an interesting one because Francis and I are in Japan from October 5th all the way to October 21st. So we are in Japan for a lot of October. So we will see how many spooky season games I get to play in the month of October. We will see. We're also going to be going to some board game stores in Japan. So I might pick up some small card games that Francis and I can play while we're in Japan. So we will see about that. But yeah, as for the month of August, these are the stats. So overall, I played a total of 44 times. So this is just in general. How many times did I sit down and play a board game, whether that be multiplayer as well as solo? And then as for the amount of games, different games that I played a total of 34 different games. 21 of those were new to me. And then as for BGA, I played a lot of games on BGA this month. I think this probably was my highest month for BGA. I have just been obsessed with playing games on there. I think I mentioned it in my last monthly wrap up, but I have been probably playing it a little bit too much because I have been, sitting, working on my computer, and I always have BGA open, and then I'm taking my turns every once in a while. So it's probably taking a little bit of my focus away from, editing and doing all of the admin and stuff that I'm usually doing on my computer. So yes. In total, I played 37 games on BGA, which is a lot more than I typically do. I think last month I played 22 times on BGA, which was pretty high to begin with, and then this month is 37. So yeah, a lot of BGA playing. I play a ton of games on there that I just love playing. I play a ton of the Castles of Burgundy. I've been playing Harmonies, which they recently got on there. I've also been playing a lot of Nar, Far Away, a bunch of just games that I know and love and I enjoy playing over on BGA. So that is everything for my board game stats for the month of August. But let's get quickly into the Herb Garden, which if you are not familiar, the Herb Garden is kind of where I like to highlight a lot of the small box games and party games that I've enjoyed in a month. So let's get into that. All right, so getting into the Herb Garden. So these are going to be some games that I really enjoyed in the month of August that are smaller kind of party games and card games. So the first one I quickly just wanted to mention because this is one of the most simple games, but it is just, there's something about it that makes it very fun. But that game is Flip 7. So I did get this gifted to me by the op. This is their new kind of quick little card game that you can play with, I believe, up to like 11 players. I think it says that if you have more than 11 players, they recommend getting 2 decks, but this is actually a promotional edition. So the edition that they are actually coming out in retail with is actually a little bit bigger than this. The box is a little bit bigger, but this is a card game. And I think people are saying it's similar to like blackjack. I think that's the game that they are saying it's similar to. Basically, someone is like the dealer, so they're going to have the deck of cards, and they're going to ask each player going around in turn order if they want another card, and someone will say, hit me, they'll get a card, and basically you're trying to push your luck until you get 2 of the same cards. So if I had a 12 already on the table and another 12 is flipped in front of me, I actually bust for that round and all of my cards go into the center. And basically you are trying to get to a point where you say, okay, I'm done. You don't have any doubles and you actually get the amount of points for all of the cards that are in front of you. And I think it's the first person to like 300 or something like that is the winner. There are a few special cards that will like double your score. There's like a freeze card that if you get that, you can actually give it to another player, and that kind of like ends their round so they can't get any more cards. There is a flip 3 card, which you can either keep for yourself or give to another player, and that makes them flip over 3 cards in a row, which obviously is more likely to then have them get doubles. But if you do want to kind of push your luck more, you could do it for yourself and then you would get 3 cards. But yeah, it's just this very simple game. I really enjoy it. The different numbers on the cards is how many of that card is in the deck. So there are going to be 12 12s, 11 11s, so on and so forth. And yeah, this one really surprised me. The simple rule set I think is just so great to quickly just bring to the table, teach people, and get playing with big groups. So yeah, that's why I quickly wanted to mention Flip 7. It's a very fun one, and I recommend if you are looking for just a fun, quick card game to play with big groups. Moving on to the next game. This one I was actually going back and forth whether I wanted to put it into the top 10 or not, because this is a small box game, but it's actually not necessarily a card game. It's like a little small box dice game, but I feel like it's small enough that I wanted to highlight it here. It's also a fairly simple game, but I actually really enjoyed this one. When I first heard about it, which this is Sausage Sizzle, when I first saw this one, I was like, that's gonna be a stupid game. I am not going to get it. But then I ended up playing this with Tyler and Ilya from Kavre, as well as I think Johannes from Board Game Ramblings. I don't think Sineva played this with us. I think she was editing at the time that we were playing this. But we also played this with Jeff from the Dragon's Tomb as well, if I'm not mistaken. But this is such a fun game, and I had such a good time with it that I ended up going by the 25th Century Games booth and picking this up myself because I wanted it. But it's such a cute little dice game. Basically, you have these little tiles that there's going to be 6 different tiles. Everyone has the same tiles. And basically, each round, you are going to decide what tile you want to score. So each round, you're going to have to score one of the tiles and flip those over, and you're not able to score that specific tile again. And each of the tiles is just going to have a different animal on it. So there's like the platypus, and I think that's the only one I remember. There's a little bear, there's an alligator, kangaroo, porcupine, and a snake. And each of them, like I said, you're only going to be able to score once. So once you've scored the platypus, you're going to flip that over, and then you're not going to be able to score the platypus for the rest of the game. And that kind of offers this really cool tension once you get to the end of the game, because you have less and less options of the things that you can score. And basically you're going to be rolling dice kind of similar to Yahtzee. You're going to roll all the dice, and you're going to, I think you always have to save one die. You always have to put one off to the side, but you can put more than one if you would like, if there's some dice that you really want to keep. And then you're going to take the rest of them, roll them, keep at least one, roll them until you have a full set of dice. And there's going to be some animal die. So there's going to be the 6 different animals that I mentioned. And then there's going to be a bunch of numbered dice. And basically what's going to happen is you are going to be trying to get the same numbers, and you're also going to be trying to get the same animals, because at the end, whatever your lowest number is that you have rolled in your finished die set is going to be the multiplier by how many of a specific animal that you roll. So for example, if I ended up rolling my lowest number being a 2, and then I decided to score my snakes and I had 3 of those, it would be 3 times 2, I would get 6 victory points for the snakes. And then I'd flip over the snakes and I wouldn't be able to score them for the rest of the game. The one thing though, and where the sausage comes into play, is that if you, I believe, can get 3 sausages, I think it is, or if all of them are sausages, I can't remember, 4. So there are going to be 4 numbered die. If you can get all 4 die to end up being sausages, then I believe it's that you get to multiply your animals by 7. So it's like the most you can possibly get. And in the game where we played this at Gen Con, I ended up like somehow getting the 4 sausages with the animals that I was going to score, and I got a bunch of victory points for that. And it just ended up being a very fun, lighthearted dice chucking game. There is another one that I really enjoy called Chicken by Keymaster Games that I played one time, and I really enjoyed that. And I've always considered purchasing Chicken, which I still think I want to get Chicken at some point. But Sausage Sizzle kind of gives that same vibe, but brings in those different animal types and brings in a little bit more than what Chicken has. So yeah, I really enjoyed Sausage Sizzle. I am excited to play it more. I do think that Francis' family would really enjoy this one, and also our friends Tom and Asha. So plays 2 to 5 players, so I'm excited to play that one in the future. But that is Sausage Sizzle. Moving on to another card game that I think I might have seen this card game somewhere. Like I like see the box and it looks familiar, but I actually did not know that this game was a card game. And I actually didn't know that it was like a deduction card game. And it was quite a big surprise to me. And a huge thank you. I do believe that Corey, which was the gentleman that hosted us with the Lucky Duck Games and Cardboard Alchemy retreat. He hosted us at his house, and I think that he had some extra copies of this, so he gifted one to me. And this is such a fantastic game that, like I said, I had no idea it was this type of game. I've always seen this box and I thought it was like a party game, but the game that I'm talking about is Expressions. So Expressions, I've seen this box before, but like I said, I thought it was some sort of party game where you're making expressions. I don't know. So we ended up playing this. It's from the publisher Barn Made Games. And this is a deduction game where everyone gets a hand of cards. There are, I don't know how many suits, but basically there's going to be numbers 1 to 10 in each of the different colors. I think there might be 5 colors if I'm not mistaken. And basically you are trying to literally just guess cards from your, like, everyone's working together, so it's a cooperative game. So you're just trying to guess the other player's cards. But if you ever guess a card wrong, then you have to put a card into, I think it's agony and something else. So there's like 2 kind of opposite sides. It's agony and then something happy. We're gonna say happy. Agony and bliss, maybe. Let's just say that. So basically, by the end of the game, you are trying to get more cards in bliss than you have in agony. And any cards that are in front of the players at the end of the game go into agony as well. So basically what you're doing on your turn is you're playing down a card. That's one thing you can do. And that the way that you actually place the card is going to tell the other players something about that card. So you might put it in one direction, and that will state that this is my only card of this color, that sort of thing. You could put it a different way, and it could state that I have more of this number in my hand. There could be a different way where you could say that this is the highest number of this suit that I have, or the lowest number of this suit that I have. And basically you're just placing down these cards in front of you. Yes, those cards are going to go to the agony side at the end of the game, but you're also at the same time giving everyone else information to deduce what is in everybody's hands. And if you guys know me, you know how much I love deduction games, and bringing in kind of this deduction element into just a quick card game I think is genius, and I really enjoyed it. But also if basically someone guesses correctly a card in your hand. So I could be like, hey, you have the red one. If you do have the red one, you place it into bliss, and then you also get to place another card from your hand into bliss. So that's kind of how you get this kind of chain going of putting more cards into bliss, so that by the end of the game, you can have more cards in bliss than you do in agony. Pretty sure that's not the right word, but we're just gonna go with it. But anyways, yeah, this one really surprised me. I very much so enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to playing this one more. Again, I think a lot of like my friends in my friend group will enjoy this one, so I'm excited to introduce it to them. But anyways, yes, that is Expressions. Really enjoyed it, and I'm excited to play it more. All right, friends, so that is everything for the herb garden. But let's move on to the main part of this video, and that is my top 10 games of the month of August. All right, so starting with my number 10, this is one that I do not have physically, but it's one that I was introduced to at the Cardboard Alchemy Lucky Duck Games retreat, and this is a game called Wilmot's Warehouse, which this was introduced to me by Matt from Shut Up and Sit Down. And when I first heard him say the title of this, I, for some reason, thought he said Woman's Warehouse. So this game will always forever be Woman's Warehouse in my head, but it is Wilmot's Warehouse. And if you guys have not heard of this one, some people have been talking about it recently, but it's this very interesting, again, kind of party-esque game, but it is primarily like a memory game, which I think is a lot of fun. I personally really enjoy memory games, and I have a little bit of a like photographic memory. So this one was really fun to me and fairly easy for me. And also the way that you go about playing the game kind of allows you to remember things a little bit easier. Basically what's going to happen is you're going to have, I believe it's like the factory floor, and you're going to be putting out different things on the factory floor that are just going to be tiles with random images on them. But what the game is really wanting you to do is cooperatively work together to kind of create a little bit of a story to better remember where everything is on the floor, because you're going to look at whatever symbol that is, that little image, and then you're going to have to remember that and then place it somewhere in the factory flooring upside down. So you're not going to be able to see what it is later. So in order to remember what that tile is before you flip it over, you're going to have to kind of create some sort of story or just way of organizing things. So you really have to kind of work as a team to kind of decide how you are going to best remember where everything is, whether you want to organize them by kind of the shape similarity, if you want to create a story, which is what we did. And I will not be kind of explaining the story because it was very inappropriate and not PG-13. So yes, we will just say we created a story that really helped us in the end figure out where everything was. But basically once you have put all these tiles out, there's also going to be some cards that are going to change up the way that you play each round. Sometimes, like each time someone places a tile, you're gonna have to turn the board 90 degrees, so that's going to make it even more challenging to remember where the tiles are. You're also like, one round we had to only say one word when kind of talking amongst ourselves, and once we said that one word, that's the only word that we were able to talk about or say out loud. So that was fun. There's a bunch of different cards that get flipped over each round. But by the end of the game, you're going to have kind of these tiles all around flipped upside down, and obviously your story or the way that you have organized these in your head. And then you're going to have customers come to your factory. Or I guess it's not really a factory, it's more of like a warehouse, obviously, because it's called Wilmot's Warehouse. Everyone is gonna get a hand of cards. They're just going to be a bunch of different cards that are going to be customers, and in real time, as quick as you possibly can, you're going to cooperatively be flipping over these cards and trying to remember where the coordinating icon or kind of image was placed on the board, and you're going to be placing them out where you think that specific tile is, and you're going to try to, like I said, do this as fast as possible, and then you're going to get points for how many, or actually I think you just get negative points for the ones that were wrong. But because our story was so strong and we really made sure that we knew our story and we're really good at like remembering where things were, I think we actually got perfect and we didn't get any of the customers wrong. But yeah, it was a very memorable experience. I think it'd be a lot of fun to play with a lot of different groups and kind of seeing how each group does the like organization of the tiles. Being a person that loves organization again too, I feel like this is a game that it was destined that I would really enjoy it, kind of organizing those tiles and remembering where they were. So yeah, that was my number 10, Wilmot's Warehouse. Very fun game. I definitely recommend checking it out if it sounds interesting to you. But yeah, that was my number 10. Moving into number 9. So this was a game that I played right after Gen Con. I got this at Gen Con and I think I played it at Alex's house before I left to come back home after Gen Con. But my number 9 is Biomos. So I think that's how you pronounce it. This is a game by North Star Game Studios and this was given to me by them at Gen Con. But this is a very fun kind of puzzly game. It's kind of in the realm of all of those puzzle games that you know and love, where you are trying to create different patterns with these different like circular discs. And each player is going to have this board that allows for discs kind of in a circle. Kind of reminds me, if you guys have ever played those games where you have that little frog that like shoots the balls around, and then whenever a ball is the same color, it like explodes and you're trying to make sure all of the balls like don't fill up the whole space. I could be crazy, but that's a game that I used to play all the time. But yeah, kind of reminds me of that. It doesn't play anything like that, just kind of like the circle of like the lined up circles, if that makes sense. But basically you are introducing different terrains into your biome, I believe, and you are trying to create specific patterns in order to draft these cards that are going to get your victory points. Also with the specific terrain, if you can manage to get a specific terrain beside one, you can always do these special actions, which then allow you to change the terrain type. You can also, when you are drafting these different circles into this kind of line, you can put things in between and kind of move things and shift things around, which is really nice and kind of gives you the flexibility to try to create some pattern and then shortly after kind of move. You can't really move things around, but you can like put things in between things and to then get more patterns and kind of build off of that and kind of build towards, not only getting one pattern, but trying to get one pattern and then putting one more in to get a different pattern and planning a few turns ahead to try to do that as much as possible. So that was very fun. It was very puzzly. I really enjoyed it. It also has a solo mode as well, so I'm excited to try that one out. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Very fun. I do still prefer some other kind of puzzly games over this one, but I do think that it offers a great puzzly experience in a pretty small box. It's actually a smaller box than I was anticipating for it, but again, I'm very excited to play this one solo as well, so keep an eye out for my solo review of that once I do get this played solo on a sewing solo. But yes, that was my number 9. Biomos. Next up is my number 8, and this was probably one of my most anticipated games of Gen Con. We actually played this one once we got back from Gen Con, the same day that we played Biomos. We drove back from Gen Con to Ohio, stopped at Alex's place, we played a few games, and then I left from there back to Canada. But the game that I'm talking about is Parks Roll and Hike. So I did already talk about this in a solo video. I talked about it in my most recent sewing solo, and I really enjoyed this one overall. Like I said, I've played it both solo and multiplayer already, and I enjoyed it both ways. I will say that I do think I enjoy it solo more than I do multiplayer, and I will get into that in a second, but overall, I really enjoyed this one. I'm a huge fan of Parks. Parks has definitely dropped a little bit for me on my top 100, but it's still a game that I really, really enjoy. I enjoy that one solo as well, and with some smaller player counts. I don't really love Parks with a larger player count, but this one I feel like does play pretty well at the higher player count. It can only go up to 4 players because you have the books, and you also have the dice drafting. But the one thing that kind of irked me about this, first time that we played this, so at Alex's house with Alex, myself, and Professor Meg, Meg actually had this really good engine of being able to draft the yellow die, which in the game you have a bunch of white dice that you're going to roll, and there's also going to be one yellow die. And basically when someone drafts that yellow die, they do have to pay some suns in order to do so, but then that kind of ends that turn, I guess you could say. All of the dice get brought back and then rolled again, and the little boot on the path moves forward once and kind of progresses you to the end of the game. So whenever someone did that, you would take all the die back, you would roll the dice again, and then you'd move the boot forward. The person that drafted the yellow die would also get some sort of bonus, and then so would everyone else. But like I was saying, Meg had a really good engine of being able to gain this yellow die and draft this yellow die, and I was always the player after her. And I don't know if it's the case, but it kind of felt like I was getting one less turn every single round because of that. I obviously don't blame Meg for this. She was just playing the game, and she had a really good engine of being able to draft that die and continuously over and over again during that game. She's like, I feel bad for doing this, but I'm like, it's fine. Like, you're playing the game, you're doing well. I think it's just part of the game where, yes, the next player is not going to be getting a die from that drafting phase, but they are also then getting first choice of all of the newly rolled dice. So in a way, like, it's kind of good for the next player, but it kind of just didn't feel good always being like the player that didn't get to draft a die from that set of dice. It kind of felt like I said, I wasn't getting as many turns, which I don't know if that's the case. Like, I'm trying to think if that actually works out, that I'm not getting as many turns. But yeah, that was one thing that I was like, ugh, I don't love this. But the multiple times that I've played it, like, it's not the hugest deal. And come to think of it, thinking back, I do think I actually won that game of Parks, Roll, and Hike. So it probably just didn't feel good during the game, but then didn't really affect my gameplay. And really, it might have felt like I wasn't having as many turns as the other players, but maybe it was actually really good for me to kind of have that new set of dice to choose from a lot of the times. So, but overall, like I said, that was just a little thing that was irking me a little bit in that one gameplay, but overall I've really enjoyed my plays of this so far, and like I said, I really enjoyed this solo as well. It's great, it's compact, I love the aesthetic and kind of design of this with the little books that you are flipping through for each game, and all of like the different parks that you can choose from for each game as well. So overall, really enjoyed it. That is my number 8, Parks, Roll, and Hike. Moving on to my number 7. So this was actually the game that I most recently played, and this was a bigger game that I was not expecting to enjoy. This was one that my friend Aiden introduced to me, and he always introduces me to the most interesting games. This is a game that I've heard of before, and it's a pretty big kind of Euro game, but most of the time the games that Aiden introduces to me are just games that I don't know of, or they are games that like I off of first look am not interested in, but I always kind of end up enjoying them. So I always try to keep myself, you know, open to the games that Aiden wants to play. So this was one that he brought to a board game night, and we started at 11 p.m. And this game, and my number 7, is Barrage. So this is actually a game that I do think they have like a Kickstarter campaign right now for like the legendary box of Barrage, but I just played the base game of Barrage. It's been one that Aiden has wanted to play for a while. So we ended up playing this, Aiden, myself, and our friend Mike, Meeple Mike. And yeah, this one was really fun. It's like a worker placement game. You have a lot of workers each round, which is really nice. But some of the worker placement spots, you require more than one worker. Some of them are 2 workers, 3 workers. I think the most is 3 workers. And then some of the worker placement spots actually require you to put 3 workers as well as spend some money as well. And basically you are trying to create energy by having water flow through your dams as well as your little towers. I'm not 100% sure what those are called. And your towers are then connected to these power plants, and you're trying to, like I said, create as much power. And each round you're going to be going up this like energy track, and you're trying to get as far up the energy track as possible, because at the end of that round you are going to go back down to 0, which is something that I was not expecting. But you are trying to just create as much power in a single round as possible in order to complete these different contracts, which then will get you like rewards, different things like that, victory points. And yeah, you're trying to use your resources that are actually, like, you spend the resources, but then eventually you get them back, which is quite interesting. Usually with like a worker placement and resource management game, you're spending those resources and then you're going to have to figure out a way to make those resources back by going to worker placement spots. But in this one, you actually have these little like wheels, and whenever you build something, you're going to put whatever you built into a section of the wheel, and then you're also going to put in the resources that you spend, and then you're going to turn your wheel. And in order to get those resources back, you have to turn your wheel all the way around so that all those resources in that thing that you built moves all the way around and then gets shot out again, and then you can use those things again and you can build that specific type of building again, which is quite interesting and not a like resource management type of thing that I've seen in a game before. So I thought that was very unique. The whole like dam and like water energy production theme does not resonate with me. It's like, you know, it's boring to me. But the overall gameplay was quite fun. So really, really enjoyed it. It's a pretty heavy game, so I'm not going to be able to explain everything, but you also have like different special abilities for your main character, and then also you have like an assistant as well that gives you an ability, so that's fun and kind of varies the game in a way. We're also playing this again on BGA right now, so immediately once we were finished that game, all three of us got into another game of it on BGA. But yeah, overall I really enjoyed Barrage, and that is why it is my number 7. Moving into the next game. This one is one that I played and actually filmed a playthrough of at the Lucky Duck Games and Cardboard Alchemy retreat, and it is Nestlings. So I actually got this review copy at Gen Con as well. It was actually in a little bag that we got when we went to the Lucky Duck event at Gen Con. But this is a game for 1 to 4 players, and I've seen this game here and there, and I was kind of interested by it, obviously because it has a great theme, and a theme that I really enjoy, which is animals, nature, birds, things like that. But I always just saw it, and I was like, it kind of just reminds me of Wingspan, because, you know, birds, you just automatically think of Wingspan, which is a little bit unfortunate because this is a fantastic game and I really recommend it. It is completely different from Wingspan. It kind of has a little bit of like area majority in a way, which I have discovered. I've said this many times on my channel. I don't like area control, but I do like area majority. So basically everyone is going to be simultaneously rolling their dice, and the dice are going to have different kind of environments, biomes, habitats. That's what it is. They're going to have different habitats. There's going to be the Alps, the forest, the desert, and the wetlands, I believe are the 4. And then there's also going to be the grasslands in the center of the board. And basically, whatever die you roll, you can actually, at the beginning of your turn, always re-roll your dice if you'd like. But you're going to be placing one of your dice into one of the coordinating kind of habitats. And then at the end, when everyone is finished placing all of their dice, that is going to determine kind of the priority of the drafting of goods at each of the different habitats. So if I actually place the most dice into the alpine kind of habitat, I would then get priority and I would be able to draft from that kind of resource area first. So there's going to be a bunch of different resources in each of the different habitats, and you are trying to collect these different resources in order to kind of finish your little like pie graph. You're actually trying to just get one of every single resource throughout the game. The more of each resource, or the more variation of resources that you can get by the end of the game, the more victory points you're going to get. Each player is also going to have their like specialty kind of habitats. Each player is going to be connected to one of the 4 habitats as well, and you're going to have to collect certain resources from that specific habitat in order to feed your nestlings, and you can then feed your nestlings with those resources in order to gain victory points based off of some of the like pie slices that you've completed. So you're trying to complete those as soon as possible in order to gain as many victory points as possible when you're feeding your nestlings. There's also going to be your kind of nest goals. So you're trying to gain specific resources in order to complete your nest goal as early as possible. And then there's also going to be some like public goals as well that you're trying to complete. And there's more specific rules to each of those things, but overall, I think just it's a very simple game, but then there's so much strategic depth when it comes to like where you think other people are trying to go, what resources other players are trying to get, different things like that. So overall, I really enjoyed Nestlings, and it wasn't at all the kind of gameplay that I was thinking it was. And then we learned it, played that playthrough and like filmed that playthrough, and I just really enjoyed it coming out of that playthrough. So yes, that is Nestlings, my number 6. So moving into my number 5. So this is another game that I do not have physically. This was one that I played at Gen Con again, and I got a full demo of this one. I sat down with Sean from KTBG, or Kids Table Board Games, and this is actually a game that is not quite out yet. I'm not 100% sure when this one is coming out, but their next game that they're coming out with is a game called Layers, and I had the chance to sit down with Sean from KTBG and play this one, and I loved this game. This is actually a 2-player only game, so it is a head-to-head game where basically you're going to be kind of you have your layer behind a screen, and the other player has their layer behind their screen as well. And at the beginning of the game, you actually get these different walls and these monsters and traps and different things, as well as treasure that you're going to be kind of building out your layer with. And this is kind of similar in a way to Battleship, where each player is going to have their things and they're going to be placing them out, and then the player is actually going to be trying to make their way through the other player's layer. So they are going to have these different cubes that they can use in different ways each turn to kind of move in different ways, possibly peek into a room without moving into it, different things like that, in order to make their way around and kind of deduce where different things are. And you have like a little paper that you kind of like making your way through and kind of drawing in what you are finding as you're going through that other player's layer. And you're trying to collect these different treasures in order to gain victory points, avoid the different monsters and traps, which obviously you have no idea where these things are in the player's layer. So you're trying to like carefully maneuver your way through their layer. And the cool thing is that like the other player's layer is always going to be different. And I think that's so cool that at the beginning of the game, you're like creating your own layer and it's always going to be different. They also, Sean explained to me that there's going to be different boxes that you're going to be opening and different mechanisms and different things are going to be introduced into the game, which like I am so excited for it. You guys have no idea. I think it's going to be a fantastic game. If you really enjoy that kind of deduction, hidden movement, not really hidden movement, but like deducing things and kind of, like I said, that Battleship-esque kind of play of trying to figure out where certain things are based off of like moving things around. I definitely recommend it. I'm very excited for it, but that is my number 5 of August, Layers. All right, so I've been filming for a while, so hopefully this video is not too long once I edit it, but my number 4 is a game that I was so excited for at Gen Con, and I have played it a few times now, and I've really enjoyed it, and that game is Middle Ages. So this is a game by Studio H. I really enjoy Studio H's games. There's a few other games that I really enjoy from them. There's Vampire Village, there's also Shamans, as well as Velbara. A lot of great games from Studio H I definitely recommend checking out. But Middle Ages is their next game, and this is actually a re-implementation of a game called Majesty for the Realm, or Majesty of the Realm. I think it's Majesty for the Realm, possibly. But this is a tile drafting game, basically, where you are going to be placing your little horse onto one of these tiles in a row. The further to the left that you place your horse and the tile that you draft is going to actually determine the player order for the next row of drafting. So if you want a more higher priority drafting order, you're going to want to draft one of the tiles furthest to the left. So you're going to be drafting those tiles. There's going to be a bunch of different types of tiles that you're going to be then adding into these different columns, and each tile is then going to allow you to do something different, whether that be kind of screwing over the other players by making them get rid of a tile or damage a tile that they then have to kind of repair on a later turn. Or it might get you more scoring, different things like that. And then each tile is also going to allow you to score specifically for how many of this tile you have and how many of this tile you have. There's also going to be some tiles that allow you to upgrade each of the tile spots so that you can actually add another coin to one of the spots. So when you put a tile there, you then get one more coin every time you put a tile in that column. There's also going to be the upgrades that allow you to score another type of tile when you go to that spot. So ultimately, it is just a drafting tile game, and then each tile is going to allow you to do something. It's this engine building game that is just so satisfying to me. It's the perfect amount of take that, where there is one specific tile, actually two. So there's the windmill tiles that if you have more windmill tiles than another player, when you place a windmill tile, any player that has less windmill tiles than you have to give you coins. So there's a little bit of take that in that aspect. And there's also these kind of attack towers or attack tiles that if you have more attack tiles than they have defense tiles, they then have to give you coins as well. And they also have to damage their leftmost tile into their damaged kind of area, and then they have to place a tile that will then allow them to kind of repair that tile and place it back. So there's a little bit of take that, but it's not to the extent that I do not enjoy it. I'm not a huge fan of take that games, but this one does it in a really nice way that it allows for that kind of player interaction, but it doesn't end up, making you upset and being like, oh, what the heck, that is so mean, that kind of thing. So yes, that is Middle Ages. I really, really enjoyed it. I love the aesthetic of it as well, and I feel like it's a great game that's super easy to teach. I taught this to a few people and it was very simple. And we got to playing really quickly. So that is my number 4, Middle Ages. Number 3, this was a game that I, in a million years, did not expect me to enjoy as much as I did. And that's probably why it's so high on this list, because I was not expecting to enjoy this one. But the game that I'm talking about in my number 3 for August is The Gang, which is a kind of poker deduction game, which is crazy to me because I have never played poker in my life. Before I actually played this one, we played this at the Lucky Duck Games and Cardboard Alchemy retreat. We played this and I had no idea how to play poker. This is specifically Texas Hold'em poker, I believe. So each player is going to get 2 cards, and then 3 cards are going to get flipped out in the middle of the table. And the cards that you have in your hand and the cards that are on the table are supposed to make up your hand of cards. And basically, it's not so much a game about poker, but it is a game about deduction. So you are trying to really get into all of the other players' heads, because it is a cooperative game where basically you are trying to, by the end of flipping out these cards, so you're gonna flip out 3, everyone's going to grab a chip on how they're feeling with their hand. You will then flip out 1 more, they'll grab another chip that kind of, gets a feel for how they think their hand is based off of what they have and what's on the table, and then you're gonna flip a 5th one. And then once that happens, everyone's going to grab a chip, and the chips are going to be numbered from 1 to 6. And basically it's going to be how good you think your poker hand is. And cooperatively, by the end of all of those cards getting flipped out, you are trying to rank your hands from the worst hand to the best hand based off of what everyone has grabbed with those chips. So obviously you're gonna have 1 chip that is kind of how you were feeling when you only had your first 2 cards. And then you're gonna have another chip that is going to be based off of your 2 cards as well as those 3 on the table. And then you're gonna have another chip for the 4 and then another chip for the 5. So you're gonna kind of have to deduce like what people had and why maybe the chips that they grabbed were better after a certain card was flipped and different things like that. And amazingly, at the end of the game, we were actually on our last round. We had 2 of the good cards flipped and 2 of the bad cards flipped. So this last round, it was pretty important that we successfully ranked them. And we actually managed to do it. And it was crazy because a few of the hands of cards were so close together that like it was crazy that we were able to kind of deduce and put them into the correct order. I think it's just a fantastic game. We actually didn't even put in, there's like other cards that you can add to it as well. But yeah, the gang was a huge surprise to me. It's one that I'm even considering buying now, which I never thought I would purchase the gang because it, like I said, is about freaking poker and I've never played poker in my life, but it was very fun. So I definitely recommend checking it out. You don't even have to know how to play poker in order for it to be fun. Like I said, it's more of even like a deduction game than it is a game about poker. So I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, that is my number 3. That is the game. All right, so moving into the top 2, as you guys can tell, I think my voice is slowly leaving me. But my number 2 is a trick-taking game that I have been anticipating for so long. And honestly, it didn't surprise me how much I enjoyed this one. But the game that I'm talking about in my number 2 is Rebel Princess, specifically the deluxe edition. This was given to me for review by Bezier Games, so a huge thank you to them. But this is a trick-taking game, like I said, where you are trying to not win tricks. So typically in a trick-taking game, you are trying to play the highest cards in order to, win specific tricks and try to gain as many tricks as possible. Obviously, there's like different things that change with each trick-taking game, but in this one, you are trying to avoid winning tricks for the most part because you are trying to avoid proposals from princes. So everyone is going to be playing an asymmetric character, which I think is one of my favorite parts of this game, is that it's an asymmetric trick-taking game, which I think is very cool. But each player is going to get a princess that is going to give them some sort of ability that they can use once each round. So there are going to be 5 different rounds where you are going to be getting a hand of cards, playing out those tricks, and each round, additionally, there's also going to be a different kind of rule implemented with a card. So you're gonna have these cards on the side that you're gonna flip over, and they're going to have some sort of game-changing or round-changing rule that is only applied for that specific round. So that full hand of cards that you're playing out into these different tricks. And like I said, you're trying to avoid these prince cards that people are going to be playing into tricks. And if you unfortunately win that trick, you're going to have to take those proposals, and the proposals are going to be negative points. So very fun. I think it's just such a fun theme as well with like trying to avoid the proposals. I love that part. And ultimately, I think it's just a great kind of foundation for a trick-taking game, and then you also put on top those different cards that you're flipping over each round. They're going to bring in some different rules each round, which I love, and then each player, like I said, is going to also have the different asymmetric abilities. I just think it is a fantastic trick-taking game. I definitely recommend. It's a great production of a trick-taking game as well. It plays 3 to 6 players, which I think playing up to 6 players is really, really nice. I have a lot of trick-taking games that play up to 5 players. So whenever I want to play with 6 players, we're not able to play those trick-taking games. So it's really nice that this one goes up to 6 players. So yeah, I knew I was going to enjoy this one, and I'm not surprised that it is my number 2. Fantastic game. I also really love the art in this game as well, but yeah, that is my number 2 for August. That is Rebel Princess. All right, friends, and the last game and my favorite game for the month of August. I don't know if this is really cheating because this is actually a game that is in my top 10 games of all time, but I've been playing this game with an expansion that I have really been enjoying. So my number 1 for the month is The Lost Ruins of Arnak, the Missing Expedition expansion. So I do also have Lost Ruins here. But basically, once I got home from Gen Con, Francis and I actually dove into the 2-player campaign of Lost Ruins of Arnak. So this expansion here brings in a solo to 2-player kind of campaign game where you're going through a story, and each kind of chapter or each scenario of the game is going to completely change kind of the way that you play Lost Ruins of Arnak. Francis and I have played the first, I think, 2 chapters of this, and it really makes you think differently about how you go about playing Lost Ruins of Arnak. I don't want to say too much about what it does change in the game, but it really just, I love Lost Ruins of Arnak, and being able to kind of play a game that you love so much and having to completely change your strategy and how you go about playing was very fun. Also, this expansion does add in 2 more leaders, and there's one leader that I really enjoyed in this one where you are like turning a little thing that then allows you to get kind of rewards whenever you turn it. I really enjoyed that character. I forget what character it was. I believe it's the lady here. I think she's like the mechanic, possibly. Francis did play the other character and he didn't love it. So I think once we played again, he ended up playing a different character. But overall, I do think that part of it is the fact that Francis and I have been playing this one together. He's a huge fan of Lost Ruins of Arnak too. And just having a game that both of us really enjoy and we can come together and play together has always been one of my favorite things. We played Near and Far together by Red Raven Games, and that also was like one of my favorite things and really shot Near and Far up to the top for me because it's more so about the fact that I get to play a game with the man that I love and my partner as opposed to the game. But in this situation, it is one, because I get to play a game with Francis, and also I get to play a game that is one of my favorite games, and it kind of changes the way that you play it and really just add some really cool things to the game. So yes, that is why Lost Ruins of Arnak with the Missing Expedition campaign was my favorite of August. Holy manoli, guys, I have talked way too much in this video. I don't know why my voice is like leaving me. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I feel like I'm trying to like put so much effort into my talking and it's just my voice is leaving. I'm not sick. This is the weirdest thing. But anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. Also hit the subscribe button down below if you've yet to do so. We'd love to have you here in the garden. Comment down below, like I said, any games that you played in August that you really enjoyed. I would love to hear about those down in the comment section. But yes, I love you guys so much. Remember, you are somebody's reason to smile, and I will see you in the next board game video. Bye, friends.